Good morning, everyone in New Zealand. Good evening there if you're over in the UK. I'm Simon Tupman. Welcome to the August edition of Law Chat 2024, brought to you in conjunction with Moore Markham's Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors specialising in financial services to the legal profession. This month, we have a very hot topic, and that's value-based pricing. And I'm delighted our guest is Shaun Jardine, who is a former practicing solicitor, now non-practicing solicitor, disruptor, also iconoclast, former CEO of a top 250 law firm in the UK, and now author of a new book called Ditch the Billable Hour. Shaun basically helps law firms make more money by changing the way they actually price their services. I'm delighted Shaun's joining us from the UK. Hi, Shaun.
Hello, Simon. Good morning, Simon. Good evening, wherever you are, or good morning, wherever you are, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Delighted to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Great pleasure. First, congratulations on this tome that you've produced here. It really is a masterpiece in many ways, and browsing through it, there's just so many things that we could talk about for a great deal. But let's start with a joke, shall we? Page 57, the lawyer dies and goes to heaven. There must be some mistake, the lawyer argues. I'm too young to die, I'm only 55. 55, says St. Peter, not according to our calculations, you're 82. How'd you get that, the lawyer asks. Answers St. Peter, we added up your timesheets. Does that sort of set the scene for what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, but I must say, in case anybody's put off, there's some better material in it than that gag. But yes, it's a very old gag. It makes a point, but it's there's one example in the book of quintuple ways that we discount our time, because if we're just saying time is the measure, then why do we discount it all the time? Why do we write it off and all of that kind of stuff? And really, what I wanted the book to be was a how-to guide, just how to do it. And so I interviewed lots of intelligent people to contribute, one of whom was you, Simon. Thank you very much for making
Thank you.
to be one of the wise people that contributed. But there is, and there are about 20 people referred that I interviewed for the book. And the wealth of that knowledge and the practical application and the hints and tips that people can give, I wanted it to be a how-to guide. Lawyers, I've managed to read all the books behind me. Some of them are terrible.
Yeah.
A McKinsey consulting book on pricing. Wow, that's really, I'll be honest with you, I'll say 3 hours of my life I'll never get back. But actually, the one nugget I got out of that was the creation of a Iraqi template task list, because they had that in their book. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. And so I created one of those in my book, a 136-point task list about how you implement it. And there's jokes, there's YouTube clips, there's songs, there's brilliant materials from some really good people who've written stuff. Ron Baker, Tim Williams, people who've written some really good stuff in this space. And I just wanted to put it all together in one book so people could just pick it up, dip into it, and then, put some of it into practice, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, look, congratulations on it. Let's go back a little bit in history, because so many people who may be watching this might be used to billing by the hour, which has been a protocol that most people who entered the legal profession in the 60s or 70s, that's how they put a price on their time. And that has persisted for the last sort of 50 or more years. Tell me, what is actually bringing about the change? What is making some firms actually question whether this is the best way for them to price their services?
I think the inquiries that I'm getting at the moment, the driver is, at the moment, AI. We're worried about the fact that if we embrace and use technology that does things in seconds that used to take us hours to do, how do we charge for that? And I can tell you there have been some roundtables actually in in Australia, where some managing partners have said, "Oh, well, we'll just charge for the seconds then." And you think, "Wow, what are you going to do with the rest of your week?" And so it's where we've got to start thinking about the business models changing. If we're going to embrace tech, and we should, because if we do value-based pricing, it's better for our clients, better for our lawyers, better for law firm owners. But if the model's changing, we're going to embrace tech. we cannot charge by the billable hour. Let's start giving clients choices, gold, silver, bronze choices. We're used to it in our own lives. You know, when I fly to Cape Town in February, I get on a plane in Heathrow, I get off at Cape Town, but there's 4 different service levels of seats on that plane, and you pay a different price and you get a different service, but we all get off in the same place. And, you know, I talk to residential conveyancers. That's the analogy I use. Yeah, we'll do you a good service, but how that service gets delivered varies depending on how much you pay, if you're brave enough to ask and create different price points.
So what are the alternatives for firms who might be concerned about the impact that AI might have? Your book talks about value-based pricing. How would you define that? Is it the same as fixed pricing, or is it something a bit more?
I think that what my definition in the book, I talk about, look, it's charging a price that is fair to the lawyer who creates the value and to the client who's going to pay for it. And it comes back to the old adage of, if I can tell you the answer to something in 6 minutes, you're not paying me for the 6 minutes. You're paying me for the 36 years of experience that allowed me to tell you that answer in 6 minutes. And there's no formula. It's not a tech platform that will take this in and then spew out an answer. A lot of it boils down to confidence. And how confident am I to actually present you with a price that is not based on my time? And I work with one firm where an employment firm, the commercial client wanted employment contracts, and we gave them 3 price points. And the first price point was, we'll create some LexisNexis and PLC precedents. We'll send them to you. You fill in the blanks. We'll check your homework. $2,000. Or we will do it for you in 3 weeks' time. $5,000. Or we will do it for you tomorrow. $8,000. And the client chose the £8,000 option because for them, it was strategically important that they got it done really, pretty damn quick. And so you then think, well, was the client happy? Yeah, they got it tomorrow. They knew they could have got it cheaper. They just didn't want to wait or have an input themselves. Was the lawyer happy? Yeah, I'm going to do half my target tomorrow, my monthly target tomorrow when I do those contracts. Were the law firm owners happy? I bloody well hope so, because, all of a sudden, that if they were working out budgets based on hourly rates and the number of hours, that lawyer has just creamed their budget for the day because they've earned far more fees. And it's really coming back to, I think I refer to it. No, I do refer to it in the book. The old story about the engineer who gets called to a factory. The factory is ground to a halt. The machine stopped working. No one knows how to fix the machine. They get the old engineer from the village. He comes up. He listens to the machine. Then he takes out a hammer from his toolbox, taps the machine, and the factory starts running again. And he sends a bill to the factory owner for £1,000. The factory owner says, "This is ridiculous. Get me a breakdown of the bill." And the breakdown of the bill is cost of hammer, £2. Knowing where to tap, £998. Now, I always say that's a gag, that's a story. Do you know what? I found out it's a true story. And it was Charles Steinmetz, an electrical engineer in the 50s and 60s. And it was Henry Ford who had that factory that had ground to a halt. And it was Henry Ford who said, "Get me a breakdown of the bill." And it was Charles Steinmetz who spent 2 days in this factory, and he put chalk marks on the machines to say, the coils are busted. Those are the coils that need repairing. Yeah. So it wasn't a hammer, it was a bit of chalk. But it's the same thing. And I always think that's where value-based pricing started, where someone had the balls to say, "Do you know what? I'm worth this, and this is what I'd like you to charge." But I suspect if we go back into ancient Egypt, people were doing the same thing there and then. It's nothing new.
So for many of those firms listening to this might say, well, that sounds great, but we've been used to billing by the hour for many years. Obviously, the price that we charge is a significant factor in determining our profitability. How do we start the conversations and start effecting change in our firms to introduce a new pricing protocol along these lines?
Well, I think the starting point can always be, well, look, what are our most profitable teams? Where are we making the money in our organizations? You can then ask, where are we writing off time in our organizations? Because usually, and I suspect it may well be the case for some of your listeners, 20% of turnover gets written off every year in terms of WIP write-offs. So if you're talking, and I've spoken at a firm where they were turning over 100 million, and I said, I suspect you write off 20% of WIP. And the CFO nodded. And I'm thinking, wow, I wasn't expecting a nod there, but fair enough. So that when you are talking about doing a pilot of value-based pricing, you need to have the CFO, the CEO, and your pioneer group of penguins, the people who are going to be in part of your group that are going to test this, and they need to be told, yeah, our current model involves write-offs, 20% of turnover, whatever that is. Today I was speaking to a guy in his firm. It was 600,000 quid. That's what they're writing off every year. So I'm saying, well, let's tell your pioneer penguins then that whatever they do on this project, they're not going to write off 600,000 quid. So we've got to make a psychologically safe space. So it's not career limiting if we do something and it doesn't work. It's not career limiting if a client says, I don't want to pay it. And there is a no blame culture, because lawyers can be quite bad at blaming colleagues when things don't go quite right. And
Really?
one of the things I'm quite passionate about is that we need to deselect clients as well. And there are clients in our businesses, clients that we act for, and that we should not be acting for. And when I work with firms, I do an anonymous survey, and they send it to their staff. The data comes back to me, does not go to management. One of the questions is, does your firm make you act for clients who are unprofitable and too difficult to deal with? The lowest response I've ever had as a percentage is 56% saying yes.
Wow.
The highest, 96% saying yes. And I did have one CEO of a law firm when I was talking to him about working with his firm, and he rang me up and he said, Shaun, I'm really sorry, we're not going to retain you. I said, okay, that's not a problem. I said, can I ask why? He said, yeah. He said, you're going to tell my partners that we shouldn't act for clients who are unprofitable and too difficult to deal with. I said, yeah. He said, they won't want to hear that. And I felt, I bet your staff want them to hear that, and so, yeah, we've got to change what we're doing. We don't need every bit of work that comes through the front door. We need more than our fair share of the good stuff. And that's what I hope that people will go after.
It's interesting, you're talking about the analogy there of, flying to Cape Town and grading, your respective clients. One question that I've been asked before is, how do we say goodbye to some of those clients that don't pay on time, are unprofitable, and so on? Because there are some people who find that very difficult.
Yeah, well, it's you grasp the nettle. The last time I did that at my old firm was I had one of my lawyers who was a brilliant lawyer doing very niche area of work, and she said to me she was on the pilot, and I'm saying we don't have to work for clients who are too difficult to deal with, and she said, Shaun, I've got a client, I'm finishing off 3 bits of work, but she says she's going to send me some more, and I don't want to do it. This client makes me feel sick when the phone rings, and she's an award-winning lawyer. And I said, fine, let's do it. And I knew the client was difficult, so I said, get the files, come sit in the boardroom, and we'll make a call. So I rang the client. Let's call her Angela. And I said, hello, Angela. I said, Shaun Jardine. Hello, Shaun. How are you? I said, Angela, yeah, I'm great, thank you. I said, Angela, this is going to be a difficult conversation for both of us. I said, we've got 3 bits of work on the go for you at the moment. We're going to finish those. But actually, I don't want to, I understand you've got some more work coming our way. We don't want it. And I said, Angela, if I'm honest, we don't want it. You're not a fit for us. And, so I'd like you to instruct another lawyer if you don't mind. And it went quiet. And then she said, you've been listening to that silly little girl, haven't you? And I said, oh, Angela, did I not mention my colleague is sitting next to me? And I said, and I just said to her, I said, Angela, this just makes my point. You don't respect what we do. You don't respect my staff. And ultimately, it's not fun working with you. And she said, I'm not happy about this. And, you know, in my heart, I was thinking, I don't care. But I didn't quite put it that way. But we then said, that's enough. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And I know before we started this podcast or webinar, you and I were talking about Ron Baker. Ron Baker does from the Soul of Enterprise. He does in fact, I'm sure it's in the book somewhere. There's a link to a podcast where he talks about how you have these conversations about ditching difficult clients. But the important thing is, and especially for leaders in law firms, there's a great book here, actually, if anybody needs to read about leadership in law firms. But it's part of the leader's job to get these people out of our business. Now, that girl went back to her desk. Next day, I had another 2 people come to see me and say, Shaun, I've got another client we should stop acting for here. And I love doing it. And
Yeah.
It's a skill that you can
didn't
learn.
avoid the difficult conversations, and that's where people, I think, often shy away. You know, I'm at the moment running a questionnaire in support of some public workshops I'm doing, and one of the issues that a lot of the leaders report back to me is dealing with difficult people, be it people in their firms or difficult clients, and you know, we're probably not trained particularly well to actually have those difficult conversations.
No, and I did a partners away day a couple of months ago, and one of the questions that I do as an exercise is write down the names of 3 firms you want to sack, and they all scribbled away. I started with the guy at the back, said, right, who's on your list, and just pretend that it came up that it was, you know, it was an internationally well-known brand, and he said the name, and about 8 people laughed. I said, all right. I said, have you all got this firm on your list? And they said yes. So 8 out of 36 partners are saying, yeah, this international brand, we don't like them. I said, why don't we like them? They don't respect what we do. We don't get there. We're their 3rd string lawyer. They're nitpicky. They don't pay their bills on time. They question everything we do. And then I said, well, who's the partner responsible for this client? Guy down the front, who was the employment partner. And I said, what do you think about what you've heard? He said, well, I didn't know any of this. I said, how much a year does this company spend with you? He said, about 60 grand, 50, 60 grand. I said, it's not worth it, is it? And he kind of went, no, I don't think it is. Now, whether or not they actually took the next step and rang the client and said, don't send us any more work once we've finished, I don't know. But that's the leadership point, where when you get some information, what are you going to do with it? And the answer is sometimes you've got to take a deep breath and grasp that nettle.
Absolutely. Going back to the concept of value-based pricing, how do firms best capture value, put a price on their list? Do they just do that and say, well, you know, we think it's worth X thousand dollars? I mean, providing budgetary certainty is obviously one of the benefits for clients, just as when you fly to Cape Town, you're not told that it's £100 an hour while you're in the air, and that if there's a headwind, you'll have to pay for the delay. So how do firms actually sort of sit down and say, okay, we've scoped out a job here, how do we put a price on it?
Well, one of the real essence is having that conversation with the client, because until we have a conversation with the client, we don't know what's valuable to them. So think of the contract of employment analogy. We didn't, until we gave them some options, started chatting to them, we didn't know if speed is important. And it may or may not be, but we've got to have these conversations, ask some questions. A great question to ask is, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this now? You know, and it might be that they've got a very compelling reason. It might be the reason they've got is, actually, are you sure you want to do this? But when you can think about value, what you and I value is completely different. It could be wristwatches, it could be coffee, it could be cars, it could be clothing brands, the amount we spend on a bottle of wine. You know, if I take my wife out for dinner, I get a bottle of the house red. That might be all right for a midweek dinner. it's my 40th anniversary next time. If I get a bottle of the house red on my Ruby wedding anniversary, I'm in trouble. Okay. And so context changes. And you know, over here in the UK, we had a stamp duty holiday in the residential conveyancing market. All of a sudden, it was, we've got to get these deals finished before this deadline when stamp duty goes up. What did law firms do? They didn't put their prices up anywhere near enough. Their lawyers got burnt out. They were working all the hours that God sends. And now the professional indemnity insurers over here are thinking, there's loads of latent negligence cases in here. There must be, because people were, you know, we're not convinced they did it right. So premiums are going up. So who got all the value? The client. The lawyers didn't get a real good slice of that cake that is now been and gone. And it's really having these conversations, finding out what's important to clients, and then creating some options. And you know, these options could be anything. I have sat down with residential conveyancers, and one of the questions, and I'm a great fan of possibility thinking, what could we possibly put in a gold service level option? And I'm up to about 57 features at the moment of what you could possibly put in. But then you've got to present it to clients and find out what's important to them, because we don't know until we have that conversation. So the value-based pricing conversation and the questions you can ask is really important.
Isn't there a challenge here beyond just changing the mindset of legal practitioners or executive legal professionals, but also changing the mindset of certain clients who have been used to receiving bills by the hour in the past? I mean, I sometimes get lawyers might say to me, oh, well, my client likes being billed by the hour. So I'm interested in your experience here, the extent to which there is a task facing lots of practitioners to actually change the mindset of their clients with an explanation that we're introducing this new pricing methodology, which, hey, guess what? It's going to be good for you. What's been your experience on that?
If you ask a client, look, would you like to choose a fixed price based on a service level, you know, what gold, silver, bronze, or would you like the hourly rate? And for the vast majority of clients, in fact, I've only had it once where a client has said, I would like the hourly rate. The vast majority of clients say, I'll have that fixed price. And if you don't believe me and the listeners don't believe me, ask yourselves this. If you're having an extension built at your home, 2 up, 2 down extension, new bathroom, new kitchen, how many of you are going to say, yeah, I'm going to engage the building contractor on a day work rate and all the subcontractors on day work rates? How many of you are putting your hands up saying, yeah, I'm going to do that? The answer is none of you, because we want that price certainty. And so do our clients. And I with one client, we created these options. And one of the options was always, or you could have an hourly rate. And no one ticked it. And the only time I've had a client come back and say, yeah, we'll take the hourly rate, which related to internal sign-off procedures. And the option that was given was, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 quid. And the head of HR only had authority to sign off at 5,000, but they could continue to use the firm because they were an approved supplier if they charged the hourly rate. So it was internal politics that actually pushed it that way. And you know, one of the things about you know, we send our dutifully crafted hourly rate bills to clients. They look through them and check it. And they'll say, well, are you sure that was 20 minutes on that day, Simon? Because I've only got 10 minutes here. We ought to do this. And I read my heart sank today where I read a report that, you know, we've got to get used to the fact that Gen AI is going to start checking these bills, and Gen AI is going to start sending us the queries back. And it's a complexity tax, because we are employing people in our organizations to have this toing and froing about what we should be paid. But if I agree with you that it's 8,000 quid for employment contracts tomorrow, and I deliver the employment contracts and I deliver you a bill for 8 grand, we're not going to have a problem over fees, because all I've done is charge you what I said I would and what you agreed. And it's better for cash flow. I don't need to involve credit control people or bill creation people. I don't have to go through my timesheets and write all the time off or say, oh, should we charge this? And then I'm sure everybody loves the end of financial year exercise where we're thinking, oh, let's write off the WIP that we're never going to charge for because we don't want to get pay tax on it next year, and all of this malarkey. And you can stop it. You just got to take the decision you want to do it.
So, in your experience, Shaun, what sort of firms are actually running with this? Are they the large commercial firms? Are they smaller general practice firms?
They're smaller in the firm wide. They're smaller. In larger firms, you've got people doing, if they've got autonomy, they're doing their own thing if they're allowed to. And so, a conversation I had today with one guy was, yeah, well, I'll do something overnight for you. Took a deep breath, asked for £10,000, and that was a reasonable sized firm. Larger firms are now looking at this more seriously. So one big firm in the UK have engaged with me to do a piece of work with them, and they've got 5 other firms in their group. It is becoming more important, more urgent, and I think that if we think of it as lawyers, do we really like filling in timesheets? I was a litigator. I was very good at it. I could book my time. But I just in the process of finishing a survey for the UK residential market over here. And on one of those, some of the feedback from 2 people actually was, we'd quite like residential conveyancing to go back to time recording. I think, really? And of course, try selling that to your client that you're buying a house who can't tell you what the price is going to be because we haven't done the work yet. And then that always leads to the question was, well, how much of an expert are you then if you can't tell me what the price is?
You mentioned you were doing litigation. What do you say to the litigators who are the ones who normally give pushback on this topic and saying, well, you can never do it in litigation?
Okay, it's in the book. Think of dropping a pebble in the pond. Okay, we're going to get a lot of concentric circles. The very center concentric circle is what I call yes work. In fact, actually, it's Christopher Marston of Exemplar, who I know you know. He came up with this idea first of all. This is yes work. So if I said to you, you're a lawyer, can you write a letter to my next door neighbor because I've got a problem with my boundary? Do you know how to do that? Yes. And can you give me a fixed price for doing that now? Yes. That's yes, I can do that. I'm experienced. Okay, that's stage 1. Stage 2 is, what's likely to happen when my next door neighbor gets that letter? Well, and the answer is, because I'm an expert, it's 3 things. 1, we'll hear nothing. 2, we'll get a vitriolic letter back from the neighbor. Or 3, we'll get a vitriolic letter back from the solicitor acting for the neighbor. That's likely work. So as an expert, can we give a fixed price for yes work and likely work? Yes, I can. Well, the ring outside is maybe, and the ring outside that is who the hell knows. Well, let's just price yes and likely work, because when we get to likely, we'll know where we are, and then we can say, right now, what is likely to happen is X, and I'll give you a fixed price for that. So we're not expected to try and think of all of the parameters on day one, but let's just say to a client, I can do A, B, and C. Or maybe I can only do A and B, but for those 2 stages, I will charge you a fixed price of X.
Budgetary certainty in litigation sounds like the way to go.
Yeah.
Hey, Shaun, we've come to the end of our time this morning, your evening. Thank you very much for joining me. And due to the early hour, I don't think we had too many people come on live this morning, because normally I would ask for questions. But as this is being recorded, it will be available for viewing. And for those that might be interested to follow up on this discussion and contact you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, they can contact me via LinkedIn. I'm on that quite a lot, or alternatively via my website, bigyellowpenguin.co.uk. They can download a copy of the Raki task list. If someone's thinking, how big is this elephant to implement value-based pricing, There's a task list on there. Download it, and you can have a look at it. And if anybody wants to chat, just give me a ring. I can literally talk all day about this subject, but I'm happy.
Terrific. We only had half an hour, and if they want a copy of this book, presumably they can get it from your website as well.
They can, and it's available on Amazon in Australia, Canada, America, and the UK.
Terrific. Shaun Jardine, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for joining us, and all the best.
Thanks very much, Simon. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye now.